On a cold November evening in Detroit, rain hammering the pavement like angry fists. 3 little girls stand on a porch clutching suitcases that are too heavy for their small hands. The oldest is 12, the youngest barely 6. Behind them, the only home they've ever known. In front of them, a father whose eyes have gone cold as stone. The middle child drops to her knees, rain mixing with tears streaming down her face. She's begging. She's pleading. But the door closes anyway. Blick. Silence. My name is Elena, and I'm going to tell you about the night my husband threw me and our 3 daughters out into the street because we committed the unforgivable sin of not being sons. I'm going to tell you about 20 years of silence, struggle, and survival. This is a story about what happens when pride destroys a man from the inside out. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. His name was Raymond Crawford. And if you'd met him in 2003, you would have thought he had it all figured out. Successful auto parts business on the east side of Detroit. Nice house in a good neighborhood. Respect from his community. But there was something eating at him. Something that turned him from a loving husband into a stranger I didn't recognize. Started small. Comments here and there about needing a boy to carry on the family name. Jokes that weren't really jokes about how his friends all had sons to take fishing, to teach about business, to pass their legacy to. Then it stopped being jokes. Became an obsession. Our 3 daughters. Faith, hope, and joy. They were beautiful, bright, full of life. But every time Raymond looked at them, all he saw was what they weren't. Every birthday party felt like a funeral for the son he never had. Every school achievement was met with a hollow congratulations that felt like disappointment wrapped in politeness. And me. I watched the man I loved slip away one day at a time, replaced by someone I didn't know. Someone whose love came with conditions. Someone who measured worth by gender. The question isn't just why he did what he did. The question is, how does a man recover from throwing away everything that mattered? And can the people he destroyed ever find it in their hearts to forgive him? In 1990, I met Raymond at a church cookout in Highland Park. He was 25, I was 23. He had this confidence about him, this drive. He'd just started his auto parts business with money saved from working double shifts at the Ford plant. When Raymond talked about his dreams, you believed him. You wanted to be part of them. We got married in 1991 in a small ceremony at Mount Zion Baptist Church. His mother cried. My father gave a toast about building a family on faith and hard work. For the first few years we were happy. Really happy. We worked side by side building that business. I handled the books while Raymond managed the shop and sales. By 1994, we had enough saved to buy our first house. A 3-bedroom colonial with a front porch in a quiet neighborhood where kids rode bikes and neighbors knew each other's names. Faith came in 1995. I'll never forget Raymond's face when the nurse placed her in his arms. He was crying. He kept saying, "Thank you, Jesus," over and over. For 6 months, he was the most devoted father you've ever seen. Midnight feedings, diaper changes, singing her to sleep. But then his brother Calvin came by one afternoon with his newborn son. I watched something shift in Raymond's expression. Calvin talked about teaching his boy to play football, about father-son camping trips, about passing down the family business one day. And Raymond got quiet. Real quiet. When Faith learned to walk at 10 months, his friends celebrated for maybe 5 minutes before one of them said, "Next one better be a boy, man. You need someone to carry your name." Raymond laughed it off, but I saw it land. I saw it take root. Hope arrived in 1997. Another healthy, beautiful baby girl. This time, Raymond's joy lasted maybe 48 hours before the comments started. His uncle said at the hospital, "Third time's the charm, nephew. You'll get your boy next round." His business partner joked about Raymond being cursed with daughters. People meant well, I guess. But words have weight. They add up. They change you. I started noticing Raymond pulling away from the girls. Not dramatically. Just inches at a time. He'd work later hours. He'd skip bedtime stories. When Faith asked him to play, he'd say he was tired. When Hope reached for him, he'd hand her to me. The warmth was draining out of him like water from a cracked cup. Joy came in 2000, our third daughter. By then I knew. I knew before the ultrasound what his reaction would be. When the technician said, "It's a girl," Raymond stood up and walked out of the room without a word. He didn't come to the hospital when I gave birth. He showed up 2 days later, signed the birth certificate, and left. From that point on, he was a ghost in our house. Present but absent. There but gone. The girls felt it. Faith, who was 5 by then, started asking why Daddy didn't love them. Hope developed anxiety, started having nightmares. And Joy never even got the chance to know what it felt like to have her father hold her with love. This went on for 3 years. 3 years of living with a man who treated his family like a failed investment. 3 years of watching my daughters' faces fall every time their father walked past them without a smile. 3 years of making excuses, of trying to be enough for all of them, of praying that something would change. November 15th, 2003. That's the date everything fell apart. I remember because it was Hope's 6th birthday. We'd planned a small party, just family, a few friends from school, homemade cake. The girls spent all morning decorating the living room with balloons. Faith helped me bake. Hope was so excited she couldn't sit still. Even Joy, who was only 3, was running around laughing. Raymond had been especially distant that week. He'd been spending time with his cousin Gerald, who'd just had his 3rd son. Gerald kept posting photos on social media with captions like, "3 kings for the price of 1," and "My legacy is secure." I'd seen Raymond staring at those posts for hours. That afternoon Raymond came home early. I was in the kitchen putting candles on the cake when I heard his truck pull up. The girls ran to the door, excited to show him the decorations. I heard Faith yell, "Papa, look what we did." Then silence. Heavy, terrible silence. I walked into the living room and my stomach dropped. Raymond was standing there with 3 suitcases. He'd packed our clothes. The girls' clothes. Everything was crammed into those bags like we were going on a trip nobody planned. Faith said, "Papa, what's happening?" Raymond didn't look at her. He looked at me. His face was stone. He said, "You need to leave. All of you. I can't do this anymore." I couldn't breathe. The room tilted. I said, "Raymond, what are you talking about? It's Hope's birthday. Talk to me. Whatever's wrong, we can work through it." He shook his head. "There's nothing to work through. I wanted sons. I got daughters. I'm done wasting my life on a family that can't give me what I need. My brother has 3 boys. My cousin just had his 3rd. Even the guy who works at my shop has 2 sons. Everybody has sons except me. You've had 3 chances and failed every single time." The way he said "failed" cut through me like a blade. Hope started crying. Joy ran to me and buried her face in my leg. Faith just stood there, frozen, staring at her father like she was seeing a stranger. I found my voice. "These are your children, Raymond. Your daughters. They love you. They need you." He picked up the suitcases and carried them to the porch. He said, "What I need is a son. And since you can't give me that, I need you gone." The neighbors had started gathering on their porches. Mrs. Washington from next door had her hand over her mouth. Mr. Brooks from across the street was shaking his head. Everyone was watching. Everyone heard. Faith dropped to her knees on that porch. Rain had started falling, cold November rain that soaked through our clothes in seconds. She was sobbing, begging, "Please, Papa. Please don't do this. We'll be better. We'll be whatever you want. Please don't make us leave." Raymond stood in the doorway. I searched his face for something. Regret, hesitation, love, anything. There was nothing. He said, "I've already filed the paperwork. The house is mine. The business is mine. You have no legal claim to anything. I want you gone by tonight." Then he stepped back inside and closed the door. I heard the lock click. That sound, that tiny final click, is the sound that still wakes me up some nights. We stood there in the rain. 3 little girls and their mother, cast out like garbage. Faith was 12 years old, trying so hard to be brave but shaking like a leaf. Hope was 6 years old on her birthday, sobbing into my coat. Joy didn't understand what was happening, but she knew it was bad, so she cried too. I had $40 in my purse. $40 and nowhere to go. My family was 3 states away in Atlanta. Raymond had isolated us over the years, convinced me we didn't need anyone else. Most of our friends were his friends, and they'd all watched this happen without saying a word. Picked up those suitcases. I took my daughter's hands. And I walked. I walked down that street with my whole life in 3 bags and 3 pairs of small hands clutching mine. I didn't look back. Couldn't. Because if I looked back, I might have fallen apart right there on the sidewalk, and I couldn't afford to fall apart. My daughters needed me to be stronger than I'd ever been in my life. If this story has your heart racing, comment, "I'm still watching," and let us know. Let's see who's truly following until the end. We walked for 2 hours that night. The rain eventually stopped, but the cold set in. That bone-deep November cold that makes your teeth chatter and your fingers go numb. Joy fell asleep on my shoulder. Hope held Faith's hand so tight I thought their fingers might fuse together. We passed churches with locked doors and businesses that had closed for the night. I was praying under my breath, asking God for a miracle, asking for anything. We ended up at a 24-hour diner on Jefferson Avenue. The kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and fluorescent lights that buzz. I ordered 1 hot chocolate and 4 cups of water. The waitress, her name tag said Deborah. She looked at us and she knew. She didn't ask questions. She just brought extra whipped cream for the girls and didn't charge us for the refills. Around midnight, an older woman sitting in the booth behind us turned around. Her name was Beverly Johnson, and she'd been watching us for hours. She said, "Baby, you look like you need help." Broke down. Right there in that diner I broke down. Beverly owned a small boarding house a few blocks away. She had 1 room available, barely bigger than a closet, with 2 twin beds and a shared bathroom down the hall. She said, "First month is free. After that, we'll figure something out." That night, all 4 of us slept in 1 bed. The girls curled up against me like kittens seeking warmth. I didn't sleep. I stared at the water-stained ceiling and made a promise to myself and to them. We would survive this. We would more than survive. We would build something Raymond could never take away. The next morning, I enrolled the girls in a new school using Beverly's address. Faith was starting 7th grade, Hope was in 1st, Joy needed to get into preschool. I had no job, no car, no resources. But I had something Raymond had lost. I had purpose. I found work at a grocery store stocking shelves on the night shift. $6 an hour. It wasn't much, but it was something. Beverly watched the girls while I worked. During the day, I cleaned houses for cash. I tutored kids in math for $15 an hour. I sold plasma twice a week for extra money. Every single dollar went toward keeping my daughters fed, clothed, safe. Faith started helping after school, babysitting for neighbors. She was 12 years old doing the work of an adult because her father decided she wasn't worth keeping. Some nights I'd come home and find her reading to her sisters, or helping Hope with homework, or braiding Joy's hair. She became a second mother when she should have just been a kid. That weight she carried, it aged her. But it also made her fierce. The first year was the hardest. We ate a lot of rice and beans. A lot of peanut butter sandwiches. The girls wore second-hand clothes from church donation bins. There were days when I had to choose between paying for heating or buying milk. Days when I cried in the bathroom so the girls wouldn't hear. But there were good moments too. Beverly became like a grandmother to my daughters. She taught Joy to bake cookies. She helped Hope with her reading. She told Faith stories about strong women who survived impossible things. The boarding house had other families like us. People who'd hit hard times, people rebuilding from nothing. We became a community. We looked out for each other. Shared food. Shared hope. 2 years in, I got promoted to assistant manager at the grocery store. The pay jumped to $9 an hour plus benefits. We could afford a small apartment. Nothing fancy. A two-bedroom in a rough neighborhood where you heard sirens every night, but it was ours. The girls shared one bedroom. I slept on a pull-out couch in the living room. We decorated with dollar store frames and handmade art. Joy painted butterflies on the kitchen wall. Faith hung up a poster that said, "Nevertheless," she persisted. That poster became our family motto. Faith was brilliant in school. Straight A's every semester. Teachers kept telling me she was special, that she could go anywhere, do anything. She wanted to be a doctor from the time she was 14. She'd watch medical shows and take notes. She'd check out anatomy books from the library. When she was 16, she got a full scholarship to Wayne State University for pre-med. Cried for 3 days. Happy tears. Proud tears. Hope was different. Fierce, bold, unafraid to speak up. She joined the debate team in middle school and destroyed every opponent. She wanted to be a lawyer, wanted to defend people who couldn't defend themselves. She got into University of Michigan on a full ride for political science and pre-law. Joy was the artist, the dreamer. She saw beauty in everything. She'd sketch portraits of homeless people in the park, paint murals on abandoned buildings. She got into the college for creative studies with scholarships for both art and business. 3 daughters, 3 full scholarships, 3 young women who refused to let their father's rejection define them. And through all of it, we never heard from Raymond. Not a phone call, not a letter, not a child support check, nothing. He erased us like we never existed. 20 years passed. 20 years of building lives from ashes. Faith graduated medical school at 32. Top 5% of her class. She specialized in cardiology and got hired at Detroit Receiving Hospital, one of the best trauma centers in the region. Hope passed the bar exam on her first try and joined a civil rights law firm downtown. Joy opened a small art gallery in Midtown, showcasing work from underrepresented artists. And me. I eventually went back to school, got my accounting degree, started my own bookkeeping business. We made it. Against every odd, we made it. We talk sometimes about Raymond. Wonder where he was, what he was doing. Faith used to say she hoped he found whatever he was looking for. Hope said she hoped he realized what he'd lost. Joy said she just hoped he was okay, because that's who Joy was. Full of grace even for people who didn't deserve it. Then came March 2023. Faith was working a shift in the emergency room when the ambulance brought him in. Chest pains. Difficulty breathing. Possible heart attack. The nurses were prepping him, cutting off his shirt, hooking up monitors. Faith walked in to assess the patient and froze. 20 years older. Hair mostly gray. Face lined with age and stress. But it was him. Raymond Crawford. Her father. The man who threw her out into the rain when she was 12 years old. He didn't recognize her. Why would he? She'd been a child then. Now she was a grown woman in scrubs with a stethoscope around her neck and his life literally in her hands. She told me later that time seemed to stop. Her training kicked in automatically. Checking vitals, ordering tests, stabilizing him. But inside she was that 12-year-old girl again, kneeling on a porch in the rain, begging him not to close the door. He was alone. No wife. No family. No one came with him in the ambulance. The intake form listed his emergency contact as none. Faith ran the test. He'd had a moderate heart attack. Needed surgery. Needed monitoring. Needed someone to care whether he lived or died. She called me from the hospital. Her voice was shaking. She said, "Mama, you're not going to believe who just came through my ER." I drove to the hospital with Hope and Joy. We stood outside his room looking through the window. He was asleep, hooked up to machines, looking small and fragile and old. Hope said, "After everything he did to us, fate puts him in Faith's hands." Joy said, "That's not fate. That's God." We didn't go in. Not that night. Faith did her job. She consulted with the cardiac surgeon. She made sure he got excellent care because that's who she was. Someone who'd taken an oath to help people regardless of who they were or what they'd done. But she didn't tell him who she was. Not yet. Over the next few days we learned things. Raymond had remarried a year after he left us. His new wife, Christine, had a son from a previous relationship. That son, Brandon, was 15 when they got married. Raymond poured everything into him. Treated him like the son he'd always wanted. Paid for private school. Bought him cars. Gave him a position at the auto parts business. But Brandon was spoiled, entitled, ungrateful. He ran the business into the ground with bad decisions and embezzlement. Christine divorced Raymond when the money dried up. Brandon took what was left and disappeared. Raymond lost everything. The house went into foreclosure. The business went bankrupt. He'd been living in a small apartment on disability, working part-time at a hardware store to make ends meet. All those years chasing a son, and the son he chose destroyed him. How would you feel if you were Faith? If the man who abandoned you was now completely at your mercy? Would you walk away? Would you tell him who you are? Would you help him even though he didn't deserve it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to know what you'd do in this situation. Faith struggled with the decision for weeks. Raymond stayed in the hospital for 10 days. She was assigned to his recovery care. Every day she'd walk into his room, check his charts, ask how he was feeling. He was polite, grateful even. He'd thank her for her care. He'd tell her she reminded him of someone, but he couldn't place who. She'd smile and leave before he could see the tears in her eyes. One afternoon he started talking. Patients do that sometimes. Late at night when they can't sleep, when the medications make them contemplative. He told Faith about his 3 daughters. Said he'd made the biggest mistake of his life. Said he'd wasted years chasing something that didn't matter and thrown away everything that did. He said their names, Faith, Hope and Joy, like prayers he'd memorized but never said out loud. He told her he'd tried to find us but we'd disappeared. That we'd changed our last names. That we'd built lives he wasn't part of and didn't deserve to enter. He said he understood why. Said if he could go back, he'd do everything different. Said he dreamed about us sometimes. Said he woke up crying, wondering if we were okay, if we were happy, if we'd ever forgive him. Faith called a family meeting. We met at Joy's gallery after hours. Sat in folding chairs surrounded by paintings of broken things made beautiful. Faith said, "He's dying. Maybe not today or tomorrow but soon. His heart is weak. He's alone. He's full of regret. What do we do?" Hope, the lawyer, the fighter, said, "Nothing. We do nothing. He made his choice 20 years ago. Let him live with it." Joy, the artist, the dreamer, said, "But we're not like him. We don't throw people away because they're not perfect. We're better than that." I said, "This isn't about him. This is about us. About who we want to be. About whether we let his bitterness poison us too." We decided on grace. Not reconciliation. Not a reunion. But grace. Faith continued treating him with excellence. We arranged for his medical bills to be covered through an anonymous charity fund. When he was discharged, we made sure he had groceries delivered every week. We paid his rent for 6 months through a church outreach program. We helped without him knowing it was us. Because forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone back into your life. It means releasing the anger so it doesn't eat you alive. Raymond recovered from the heart attack, but his health remained fragile. He started volunteering at a youth center, mentoring boys who didn't have fathers. He started therapy, trying to understand why he'd destroyed his own family. He started going to church again, sitting in the back pew, crying through every sermon. One Sunday, Faith decided to tell him. She walked into that church and sat down next to him. He looked at her, confused at first. Then recognition slowly dawned. She said, "Hi, Papa. It's me, Faith." His face crumbled. He sobbed right there in the pew, trying to speak but unable to form words. She let him cry. Then she said, "I'm not here to punish you. I'm not here for an apology. I'm here to tell you that we survived. All of us. We built good lives. We're happy. And we did it without you. Not because we wanted to, but because we had to." He said, "I don't deserve your forgiveness." She said, "No, you don't. But I'm giving it to you anyway. Not for you. For me." Because carrying anger for 20 years is exhausting, and I'm done being tired. She stood up to leave. He grabbed her hand and said, "Tell your mother and your sisters I'm sorry. Tell them I know I can't fix what I broke. But tell them I'm proud of them. Tell them they're everything I should have treasured." Faith told him we'd always known where he was. That we'd been helping him anonymously. That the groceries, the rent, the medical bills, all of it had been us. He broke down again. "Why?" she said. "Because we're not like you. We don't measure people's worth by what they can give us. We see worth in everyone, even people who couldn't see it in us." That was the last time Faith spoke to him in person, though she sent him cards on holidays. Hope never reached out. She said some wounds don't heal and that's okay. Joy sent him paintings, beautiful, colorful pieces about redemption and second chances. She never signed them, but he knew. I wrote him one letter. Told him I forgave him. Told him I hoped he found peace. Told him that despite everything, I didn't regret the life we'd built because it taught our daughters strength that they never would have learned otherwise. He wrote back. Said thank you. Said he didn't expect or deserve our kindness. Said watching us thrive from a distance was the only good thing in his life. He passed away 2 years later. Heart failure. Faith was the one who got the call. We went to the funeral. There were maybe 15 people there. We sat in the back. We didn't introduce ourselves. We paid our respects to the broken man who gave us life but couldn't give us love. And then we left. Together. The way we'd always been. The 4 of us. Unbroken. So let me ask you this. What defines a family? Is it blood? Is it loyalty? Is it the people who stand by you when everything falls apart? Raymond spent 20 years chasing a legacy through a son. But his real legacy, his 3 daughters, they built themselves into extraordinary women despite him, not because of him. Faith saves lives every day. Hope fights for justice. Joy creates beauty in a world that desperately needs it. They are his legacy, whether he earned it or not. And me. I learned that strength isn't never breaking. Strength is breaking into a million pieces and putting yourself back together, piece by piece, day by day, until you're whole again in a completely new way. I learned that grace is more powerful than revenge. That forgiveness doesn't require reconciliation. That you can release anger without forgetting what happened. That you can move forward without dragging the past behind you like chains. This story isn't about a man who abandoned his family. It's about 4 women who refused to stay abandoned. It's about the difference between wanting children and deserving them. It's about how the people we throw away sometimes become the people who save us, even when we don't deserve saving. So here's what I want to know. If you were in Faith's position, what would you have done? Would you have told him who you were? Would you have walked away? Would you have helped him even though he didn't earn it? How do you define forgiveness? Is it possible to forgive someone and still keep them out of your life? What would you tell your daughters if they were the ones Raymond abandoned? Think about it. Really think about it. Because this story is about more than one family in Detroit. It's about every person who's ever been told they're not enough. Every daughter who wondered why her father didn't love her. Every mother who had to be strong enough for everyone. Every person who had to choose between bitterness and grace. If this story moved you, hit that like button. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. Drop a comment telling us what you would have done, how you felt, what this brought up for you. And subscribe to our channel because we bring you real stories about real people facing impossible choices. Stories that make you think, feel, and question what you do in the same situation. Until then, remember, your worth is not determined by the people who can't see it. Your value doesn't decrease because someone couldn't see it. You are enough exactly as you are. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. And thank you for being part of this community where we tell the stories that matter.